Hi, Joy. Hi, Zandy. Hey, Becca. Hi again.
Hello. Hi, friends.
Andy,
We have guests on the call already. Josh?
I think I heard someone say my name, but then there was some echo and I couldn't tell.
it was me. Are you still in Colorado or are you back home?
I am still in Colorado for another 4 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Also, I have my CTN background that I can put up. That would probably be good.
I think your background is quite civilized.
I did sort of curate my let's have a fireside chat about AI together. So
Yeah, I like that.
in fact, maybe I'll leave it if that's okay.
Yes. There's a sea of CTN backgrounds.
Yeah.
All right, we are at 4:03, so we can go ahead and get started.
Okay. Great. And actually, let's see. I think we had a couple of polls to put up as folks are coming into the room, which, let's see. Thank you. Yeah, so would love to hear from folks a little bit as we're just getting settled in. First of all, what is your current feeling about AI and the way that this has changed recently, the way that this has started to show up in the media and maybe in our professional lives? And then secondly, are you seeing impacts from this already in your workplace, in your digital inclusion work? Yeah, so we'd love to just get a sense of what folks are seeing so far. Got some responses coming in. All right. And I will say, we really do want this session to be a conversation, not just sort of a speech on anybody's part. So please do feel free to chime in or add color about your own experiences in the chat, or raise your hand if you want to come off mute and talk as well. That's always welcome. I'll go ahead and end the polls and we can take a look at the results. So we're seeing kind of an interesting spread across the sort of the sentiment initially, from very positive to the mode. The most common response was somewhat negative, and almost every position on that spectrum represented, which is interesting and not surprising to me, right? That this is a somewhat of a hot topic and also can be a little bit of a divisive topic in terms of how folks think about it. Are you all able to see those results, hopefully, in the... Okay. Some people said yes, at least. All right, great. Thank you. Good. And then so from the second one, substantial majority of folks saying, I'm not seeing impacts from AI in the workplace yet, but I expect them soon. One person said, yes, a little bit of impact. So we're sort of all poised on that cusp, I think, which again is sort of what we expected and why we hoped to have this conversation. So thanks for providing a little bit of context about that. Glad to see you all here. I'm going to share my screen with our slides for today. Let's see. And we'll do some quick introductions. Some of the folks in the room will already be familiar to you, perhaps. But let's see. Okay, so let me know if you're able to see that successfully. Beautiful. All right, and let me move my controls out of the way. Good. So we're here to talk about preparing inclusion specialists for an AI workforce. I'm Zandy Wright. I use they, them pronouns. In fact, I think we have another slide that has a brief introduction of myself. So I'm an instructional design consultant. I've been working with CTN since 2019. And I'm joined by a lot of people from the CTN team, including Skye Downing, Skye, do you want to just briefly introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Thank you, Zandy. I am Skye Downing. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Digital Equity Programs and Partnership Director for Community Tech Network, overseeing our capacity building work, and very proudly serve with these fine folks on this call. So thank you very much for being here today. Becca and myself are here in a supportive functionality to Zandy, but all the glory goes to them for this, this wonderful conversation today.
The glory remains to be seen, but no, thank you. And glad to have you here. And I hope that, truly that this is a conversation among the community and not just me sort of talking. So, okay, great. Let's then just a brief sort of preview about CTN. If you've been here with us for other sessions in our Day of Equity, you may know this already. We were established as a nonprofit in 2008, but have been doing work to close the digital divide since long before that. Working in partnership with social service providers, which means other nonprofits, government agencies, and in our direct services capacity, we provide basic and intermediate digital literacy training and devices to low-income adults of all ages. In our capacity building capacity, we provide training and support and curriculum for other providers who are doing that same kind of work in their communities or who hope to be doing that same kind of digital inclusion work in their communities. And we're partnered with over 50 agencies in 4 different states. So we're pretty proud of that. But we're here today to talk sort of a little more broadly about what's happening kind of in the digital inclusion space in general and in the digital world in general, to talk about what is this thing called generative AI that I keep hearing about so much? Why do I keep hearing about it so much? How does this fit into other trends that we may already be familiar with, whether that's good or bad? And then getting into some specifics of how do we think this is going to impact workforce and training, especially around a digital equity lens. And then if you were with us in the last session, you learned about teaching digital citizenship. So how does that apply to this concept as well? So to dive in, we actually want to do just a very quick sort of screening of a resource that we think is a good sort of laying of groundwork of like, what actually are we talking about? What is this generative AI thing? How is it different from AI that came before? So I have a video that I hope will play successfully and not lag too much, but let me know, please, if there are any issues with it. Oh, and actually, I'm going to briefly stop sharing and reshare because I want to share my audio as well. Okay, there we go.
Generative AI is the technology behind the wave of new online tools used by millions around the world. Some can answer queries on a huge range of topics in conversational language. Others can generate realistic-looking photographs from short text prompts. As the technology is ever more widely deployed, what are its current strengths and its weaknesses? The Economist science editor Alok Jha is joined by deputy editor Tom Standage, science correspondent Abby Bertix, and global business and economics correspondent Arjun Ramani to discuss this new era of AI.
Tom, The Economist has written about AI many, many times in its various forms over the years. What's changed since the last time we were really interested in it that's made it made AI much better than perhaps it used to be?
What happened in 2017 was that some researchers at Google came up with a better attention mechanism called the transformer. And that's what the T in GPT stands for. And so essentially that made these systems a lot better. They could sort of come up with longer pieces of coherent output, whether that's text or computer code or whatever. So there was a technical breakthrough, and that took a while to ripple through the community. So that's one of the things that changed. But the other thing that changed is that this technology became much more visible. Of course, what happened last year is that a much more capable model, GPT 3.5, was launched as ChatGPT, literally as a chatbot, which anyone could sign up for. And once you got to the front of the waiting list, you could go and talk to it. And you'll have heard these numbers that 100 million people tried it within the first 2 months, and that's reckoned to be the fastest adoption of a consumer technology in history. So the thing that really changed is that suddenly there was a way that anyone could use this technology, and they came up with all sorts of amazing uses for it and asked it to do all sorts of extraordinary things. And that was what really put it on the map.
I think one of the huge strengths of these large language models is that they're able to kind of crunch and churn through such scads of unlabeled data. So normally, in the past with AI, you always needed your thing and a label. So that required humans to kind of go through and label them. But these large language models, you chuck in the internet and you get out of it a blurry picture that is basically taken of hundreds of billions of words. And it honestly just seems to do well. I think a lot of people are still kind of baffled why it's doing so well at so many tasks. Like it generates convincing text. It's very good at pattern matching. Style transfer is one of the other things. Like you ask it to like, oh, write a love letter in the style of a pirate from the 14th century that has an Irish accent but is from like the Bahamas. And then it's also pretty good at passing standardized tests, it seems. Like it passed the US medical licensing exam, it's passed some legal tests. Basically very good at kind of text things.
At the moment, I think one of the big opportunities is writing code. The great thing about writing code with these systems, and I do still write some code, is that if the code is slightly wrong, you find out straight away because either the interpreter or the compiler chokes on it, or the output of the code isn't quite what you were expecting. So you have this very tight feedback loop. And if it's slightly wrong, you find out pretty quickly.
In terms of weaknesses, I think one of them is the lack of transparency. Like it's kind of a black box. You can have access to kind of what's going inside, the attention weights, what those values are, but they don't mean a lot to us. There's over 100 billion of these weights, and that's very, very complex and hard for us to understand in what they're doing. And so, I think the main weakness is that it's such a complex system and we don't really understand it fully.
If your job is to find out new facts, that's actually not something that these systems are really in a good position to do. And I was talking to people within the Foreign Office, the British government, the other day, and also they were saying, what's the impact of this? And I was saying, look, our job, whether we work in government or the intelligence services or journalism, is to find new facts. And they've got to be right. You really don't want to just take any old stuff coming out of one of these systems. So if the accuracy matters, then these systems are, maybe not so great.
The reliability of the models need to be improved, I think, before they start automating huge amounts of processes in businesses. But I mean, there's a huge amount of economic activity, I think, that'll get affected by this. I mean, the paper put out by some economists at OpenAI that said that around 20% of the U.S. workforce could have around 50% of their tasks affected by generative AI in the next few years, right? So a lot of tasks that we do on a day-to-day basis could be helped by these models over the long term. But there's some interesting, research in the economics of innovation that talks about how if you want to get what we called an intelligence explosion, or if you want to get, exponentially increasing rates of economic growth in any given domain, you need to automate the entire process. If you've only automated, 90% of it or 99% of it, that doesn't get you nearly the same effect, because the slowest part of the process, which is maybe probably the human, acts as what's called a rate determining step. So we'll end up slowing things down. So I think that's probably what is likely to happen in my mind, where we use AIs to help us with research, which frankly we are already doing, but it still is not able to get 100% of the way there. So ultimately, the pace of progress continues as it has been.
So they would have become super intelligent and turned us into paperclips if it wasn't for those pesky humans getting in the way of making them more intelligent.
This is an excerpt from a 45-minute discussion about the risks and opportunities.
All right, helps if I come off mute. All right, let's.
Generative AI is the
There we go. So I want to just pause and give us a chance to check in. In fact, maybe I'll even stop sharing. I know we had a couple of folks who were able to join us partway through, so hopefully you caught most of that. So first of all, either in the chat or if you want to be brave and come off mute and share with your voice, would love to hear just any takeaways, things that stood out to you from that video, whether that's a new realization for you or just reinforcing something that you had thought about before. So major takeaways from that. I know folks may be typing in the chat. Yeah, thank you, Becca. Yes, so the importance of impartial facts, and it sounds like maybe referring in part to the accuracy concerns and the fact that AI models, while they can do many things, they're good at many things, but they're not good at everything, and that where precision matters, that it's important that we continue to have what's called a human in the loop. Yeah. I particularly found valuable in this the emphasis on like the black box nature, right? That we used to be in a world in which you could sort of, as a layperson, you could reasonably well understand all of the moving parts of a system, of whether that was a computer or the moving parts in your car, and we are past that point in the world for the most part, where your average consumer can have a full and complete understanding of how all of the pieces work, and particularly for these AI models. Yeah. Yeah, and Becca added, this is a great point, that we are connecting people to the internet. We are passionate about connecting them to information, access to information, and that needs to be dependable information. Yeah, we're going to talk about that for sure when we get to some of the conversation about teaching digital citizenship. Okay, great. All right, let me resume sharing my screen, and we'll talk a little bit more about sort of how do we put this into a broader context. So putting generative AI into sort of a bigger picture context, right? This is a big change that has happened recently, and the thing that they mentioned in the video that I thought was particularly valuable as well was this emphasis on this AI model being accessible through what's called natural language, right? So when in a chatbot, I can type in a question or give it a prompt using language that I would use to talk to a human. I don't have to have intense training in coding or in another set of highly specialized skills to make use of this tool. So we're going to come back to that idea when we talk a little bit more about these broader trends, but obviously these trends towards efficiency, I have that in scare quotes because sometimes that's a really positive thing and sometimes it doesn't necessarily work out that way. But trends also towards automation and digitization. These are the trends that we have all been seeing in digital equity work from the beginning, but being accelerated in this case. So I'm going to give, this is not a computer science history lesson. This is just a very brief pass through some of the highlights of ways that this has showed up in the past, just to sort of reinforce for all of us that this is new, but it's sort of everything old is new again, right? So what is that, 125 years ago now, was what was arguably the first robot, Nikola Tesla's remote controlled boat, which I did not realize it had been that long. And sort of fast forwarding from that to what's considered the first true electronic computer, which, fun fact, was programmed by hand by a team of 6 women. That I learned that when I was doing research for this program. So still a lot of very highly specialized knowledge that went into creating that tool. This is not a tool that anyone could just walk up and use. But then over time, we've gotten smaller in scale and less specialized in sort of the skills that you need to be able to operate the machine, right? So this was the Unimate, the first industrial robot that was adopted by General Electric in the 1960s. We know the impact that automation and robot work has had on some of our manufacturing and other sort of physical labor jobs. And then if you, like me, are a child of the 90s, you might remember some of these devices, and again, sort of this theme of we had this technology, but it was big and clunky and slow, and you needed a lot of training to be able to make use of it. And then over time, we've made the user interface and the experience of being an individual human who has access to this technology more and more approachable, more and more affordable. And making it so that we have a QWERTY keyboard and you can type in words instead of having to know how to write code, for instance. So that sort of brings us to today. I don't have a picture of AI today because what would a picture of AI today look like? I don't know. But I do think it's valuable for us to sort of pause and reflect on how do we see those trends toward smaller, but also more powerful, and trends toward maybe more user-friendly ? How do we see that showing up with AI? I'd love to hear if folks have thoughts on that in the chat or on your microphones. And this might be in positive or negative ways, I should say. I'm not a booster for AI necessarily in this conversation.
So Zandy, just to clarify my understanding, this is an opportunity for us to talk about the ways that we are seeing AI out in the world. Okay.
Yes. And I would say
okay.
particularly if you're seeing some of the themes that we just saw sort of through technological development history, but really just in general. Yeah. In fact, I'll stop sharing so we can all see each other a little better. Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of things come to mind for me that are both. So I happen to be in the camp of technology is great and what have you. However, I'm a very human. I love humans, even the distasteful ones, So so I'm definitely in that camp of like, oh, I'm not so on board with this. But where we're seeing it most prominently, or where I'm seeing it most prominently in my world, is obviously the automation of checkout stands in grocery stores. As one space. I personally had an experience with the AI note taker, the Otter AI, in which I signed on for to just check out, and my AI bot was entering into my calendared meetings before I was, and even without me, and would just stay there and take notes that it felt was pertinent. And that was a little disconcerting. But where, I can see that it's important, and I can see its usefulness, but needless to say, there were a lot of jokes of like, is that you, Sky, or is that your AI, going on in my meetings, because they're like, why is your bot talking to us? So I do think, we have a long way to go, and I don't think we can ever let go of that human piece of it. So it's like, okay, we can generate this technology, we can improve upon it, and it can create efficiencies, but there still need to be humans involved the whole way through. It can't just replace humans altogether.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that was a good takeaway from the video for me as well, is that we can't, right? It's not fully autonomous. We can't just sort of set it and forget it, that there needs to still be that human oversight. And I really like your example of the sort of maybe not AI, but the automation of checkout counters. As on the sort of positive human impact side, we could argue that, like, isn't it wonderful that a human being doesn't have to stand there on their feet for 8 hours a day with hopefully a lunch break, and do this repetitive motion task that could be just as easily or even better done by a machine. And yet, right, there is something that's lost in terms of like the opportunity to connect with a human being in that interaction, right? So what are the trade-offs there? And are we freeing up the person who would have been standing there for 8 hours a day doing that work to do something that they would like to do more? Or are we taking away their opportunity to support themselves and their family?
That, and then I think about how that specifically relates to the work that we do. We work with learners that truly lack the skills to operate these types, operate effectively in these scenarios. So it's not realistic to think that every patron of a store, or every customer of a store can actually check themselves out, whether that's physically able to do so, or skills, skilled to do so, understanding what they're supposed to do, or even wanting to. A lot of people go to the store for to get out of an isolated circumstance and get out and say hi, and so
yeah, it's interesting to think about an aspect of this, which is sort of having a diverse suite of options, or like a diverse ecosystem of tools at our disposal, but not over relying on one particular tool or one particular pathway. And that, for me, that's one of my own sort of philosophies about digital inclusion work, right? Is that we've had this tool called the internet for, sort of publicly available for 20 mumble years. But we have gotten to a point where it's no longer a nice to have, from like a position of engagement with your community, from a position of access to information, right? It has become a necessary tool rather than just one of many options, arguably. So I want to shift us a little bit. I'll share my screen again and we'll zoom in a little bit more. Thinking about specifically some of these workforce impacts. And actually, before I sort of show my hand, so to speak, I'd love to hear what are folks assuming or expecting. I think we saw in the polls at the start of the session that people are maybe not yet seeing big impacts, but expecting to see impacts fairly soon. So if you've got thoughts about here's where I would expect to see this showing up, or anything along those lines, I'd love to see those shared in the chat as well. Or again, come off mute if you're feeling brave.
Well, I would certainly love to hear from more of you. We don't want this to be the CTM show, but I come from a background of teaching in the university. And there's basically a panic. Because how do we know these shifty students are writing their own papers and writing their own short answers? And how do we know that they don't have some kind of AI tool that can bypass the electronic proctoring on tests? So I would say in the education industry, as it were, there's quite a lot of concern about this showing up in that particular workforce.
Yeah, which is such an interesting dimension of this, I think, because when we think about, when I think about my experience in the corporate world, often the focus really is on outcomes and results, right? Like, did the pitch deck get us the grant? Great. If yes, I don't actually care if an AI helped you to write it or not. But yeah, in education, right, it's important to the way that we think about that system that we be able to differentiate, is this your work or someone else's work, right? Yeah, so that's a dimension that has definitely been tricky. Yeah, I'll share a couple of additional sort of perspectives that have come up on this for me. And there's a lot of text on your screen now, for which I apologize. But so some of the things that that we previewed as we were thinking about this in a larger context, these tools are now, as we saw, widely available, especially, sort of the ChatGPT launch, which was about almost coming up on a year ago now, that kind of brought this to a lot of people's attention in a way that they could interact with without needing to have a programming background or a computer science background, which was cool and exciting. And lots of people got very excited about that. And if you've played with the AI machine, you know that it can sort of spit out things that would previously have taken a human being a lot longer to do. And that efficiency could be a good thing, or could be a thing that ends up looking like job loss for human beings. And we do still, for good or ill, generally depend on our jobs to, keep us housed and fed. And we're also seeing that, a framework that I really love is to think of AI as your overeager, but not necessarily super competent intern. It is so desperate to please you and to do a good job, and it is often not right. And if it doesn't know, it will often make stuff up. Right. So we are not yet at a place where we can really depend on it to do exactly the thing that we need without supervision and input. So some of the ways that we're sort of seeing or thinking about that in terms of digital equity. So this is a graphic that I love that I borrowed from Marco, I think Neves is his last name. And we do have a further resources slide that we'll share at the end that has links to this complete article. But the thing that I like about this graphic, as we're thinking about a divide in artificial intelligence, is that this is basically the same divide that all of us who've been working in digital equity for the last however many years, that we've been thinking about this in the same way, right? That there's access. Do we have access to this tool? If we have access, do we know how to use it? And then maybe we know how to use it, but we're using it only kind of sort of competently, maybe not using it to its full potential impact. And then finally, all the way at the other end of that scale, that we have access to it, we know how to use it, we understand to some extent how it works, and we can use it to actually make things better, right? And this is a very familiar spectrum of where folks might land on that divide. But this is a new and different tool than the one that we've been training folks on for the last 20 plus years. So as I said, I'll share the full article that this comes from, but interesting to think about when we talk about workforce training and what jobs are going to be the most impacted by these changes, to think about, okay, how does that impact the way that we provide that training and prepare folks for the future. So we heard a little bit about what AI is good for, with the things that it does really well. So from sort of pulling together some research, and I've included automation in this as well. So for instance, repetitive tasks, even repetitive physical tasks, AI is not itself great at physical things, but like robots and drones and other machinery can be built to do that. So repetitive tasks it's good at. Compiling and cross-referencing data sets, comparing this to that to the other, absolutely great for that. Pattern recognition and replication. This is Becca and I both have a teaching of language and writing background. And so this machine's ability to read and summarize texts and generate new text following a particular pattern or a particular set of parameters is alarming for some folks, or at least impressive, maybe on a more positive side. And then the part of this for me that really hits close to home is that the things that I've seen that have said, if your job can be done from anywhere using a computer, AI can probably do most of it. Which my job, I do from anywhere. I am currently in a different state than I usually live and work. And I do my job from anywhere. And there are still parts of my job that AI would have a very hard time replicating. We'll talk about what some of those parts are, but this is this sort of AI revolution, if we want to use that term, is different from previous sort of automation, or like the robots are coming to take our jobs, in that it is particularly expected to impact knowledge work, right? If your work is primarily with your brain and with a computer, AI can probably do a lot of it. So let's talk about what it doesn't do particularly well. And I mentioned, will robots take my job? That's not just a throwaway line. That's also the name of a website that I highly recommend folks check out. They have some great information about how they calculate what jobs are most likely to be impacted, and what skills are most likely to be impacted or to continue to be necessary. So definitely recommend that folks take a look at that. But the things that AI is currently not great at, creativity, interestingly to me, was number one, which I appreciate, given that a lot of what we're seeing AI be used for is to like create, there's that word, create an image or create a document. But it does what it's told to do for the most part, right? Like it does not sort of have an idea on its own and go and create the thing. It still needs the human input to say, wouldn't it be amazing if I could make a photorealistic picture of a goldfish riding a bicycle? That would be cool. AI, do that for me, right? So that creativity is still coming from the human perspective. Personal interaction and emotional intelligence. I keep seeing that therapists, healthcare workers, childcare workers, that these are jobs that we expect to see a little bit of impact in, maybe in terms of how those jobs are done, but those jobs are not going to go away. Those jobs are going to be very secure in even in an AI heavy world. Physical dexterity and manual skill. Again, interestingly, a surgeon or a dentist generally can't work remotely, and an AI so far cannot do those things. They can help, right? We have surgeon robot assistants that do some of the support tasks, but we do still need a human doing those things. And then cultural knowledge, rich context, complex, unstructured environments. All of these are places where we do still really need the human input and the human creativity and decision making to navigate those. So as we're thinking about how do I prepare people to work in this future workforce, for me, it's actually sort of exciting to see a future where we're doubling down on these skills for humans rather than on the sort of repetitious rote, take this information here and put it over there, right? That is a thing that a human can do, but that a machine can do faster and better. And as long as we are continuing to take care of human beings in like a fundamental way, that's sort of exciting to not require humans to do that work. So let me pause there and just sort of check in. And again, I'll stop sharing so we can all see each other. Just checking in about like, How are we feeling at this stage of the discussion as we think about what we're seeing is likely to be prioritized in the future, what we're seeing is most likely to be impacted in the future?
And I wonder too, Zandy, what our questions are as practitioners
Yeah,
as far as
absolutely.
how this, I mean, so the sole purpose of this conversation is what are our questions as practitioners as it pertains to the work that we do.
You know, in our last session on digital citizenship, we talked about a fundamental component of introducing people to the internet is that while there are precautions that one should take, it can be framed in an empowering way and not a scary way. And I think, and I certainly can't speak for everyone, but I've worked in many environments in which increasing AI is threatening. It provides many benefits, and I appreciate your framing of this to be balanced. Everything that is good about AI is threatening, you know, the flip side of the coin. It can be threatening on the other side. But it's interesting for us as digital inclusion practitioners because in noticing the trends, those photos and the historical context that you gave us, one of the things that you noted was that like the machines get smaller and smaller and smaller, and now it's invisible. So AI is completely invisible, and that presents challenges in the digital inclusion world and the types of things that we teach and the way that we teach and the comfort level and community that we want to create as we reduce social isolation. It presents challenges in those areas that it will be important for us to identify and be mindful of and start to tackle, I think.
Yeah, I'm reminded of Sky's comments about her Otter AI assistant sort of being in places unexpectedly, like, no, you were not invited to this meeting, please go away, right? I feel that way about Alexa. I have to not say her name very loud because she will hear me and start talking back, right? That you know, this actually is an early model of an AI interface, right? That responds to human language in particular ways. But yes, it's sort of disembodied in a way that previous tech experiences have not been for the most part, and that can make it challenging to bring especially more sort of novice digital citizens into a comfortable understanding of what even is this thing. Yeah.
So I'd love to discuss one positive aspect of the background automation or AI that I can see for us in the work that we do, specifically my team, the Digital Lift team, and the capacity building work that we do is I told our leadership team about this makeup line that I use, this Italian makeup line that I use. And you go online and you answer a series of questions and they match your skin type exactly. I mean, I by trade, I am actually a licensed holistic esthetician. I specialize in skincare. While I don't wear a lot of makeup, I know what to do with it and how to, you know, and there's like, in my mind, I'm like, there's no way that they can ask the questions they're asking and not only get you a perfect color match, but the exact blend for your skin type and your age and your makeup and what have you. And they did. They hit the nail on the head. I mean, there was didn't have to send it back, didn't have to color match, didn't have to, you know, perfect matching. So that said, how we could apply it to the work that we do is we in the Digital Lift team have developed a diagnostic assessment tool, where it's a series of questions that helps you to understand what your agency's most critical needs are. And so I've been thinking, like, how could we build this out to where it is automated on the website, where somebody could literally be perusing the internet, stumble upon our website and go, oh, hey, I can take this diagnostic assessment. I can use this tool and learn, what my most critical needs are. And that to me is invaluable, because that is a lot of back and forth time that can be condensed into this. Okay, now we book the conversation and we just go straight into the diagnoses and the prescriptive or proactive remedies for what's going on in that organization, and talk to them about why and how we got there. So that to me is invaluable. Now how we build it out, how we get there, I don't know. And clearly up comes that human engagement factor again, because we have to actually think about every question that could be and program it all, but to have that automated would be brilliant.
Yeah. Well, and I love the place where you're thinking about how do we use this to remove some of the friction or the lower some of the barriers to getting access to resources or tailored customized support, as you were saying, and also, right, how do we make sure that gets to the right people, that it's asking the right questions, right? It does still need that expert human input. And something that came up in the video that I think is maybe relevant here, right, is that the AI models, or the large language models, as one example, part of why they are so good at what they do is that they have been trained on just, I think the phrase was scads, which is a great word, scads and scads of data, right? Just mountains and mountains of data inputs that have gone into creating this tool. But there still needs to be a human selection process of what are we feeding this thing? What are we teaching it? And from an ethical perspective, we do know that AI and sort of human created human inventions tend to replicate the biases of the humans that trained it. And so, we need to continue being thoughtful about that as well. I love the comment in the chat about being sent to a robot or an AI assistant on the telephone or on the internet, and having that try to solve your problems. And sometimes it's very good. Sometimes it knows exactly what you need, and sometimes nope, it just is not. We are not speaking the same language. We are not quite understanding each other, and so being able to get that human sort of exercising judgment and discernment and decision making, rather than something that is doing sort of a prediction of what it thinks you were going to say. I think it can be a real challenge. The other example that I use a lot to talk about AI is the predictive text on your smartphone, if you have this turned on, right, where it looks at the words that you've said so far and it's like, did you mean to say? So for me, if I type a sentence like, I should show this to it suggests therapist, which yes, that is a thing that I often say. I should show this to my therapist. That's not always what I mean to say, right? Like, it's just because it's judging off of past inputs does not necessarily mean that it's going to predict correctly in the future. And it's not always great at context. So, yeah. All right. Please. Yes.
Time check. We have 15 minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And in fact, that is a good segue for us to talk a little bit about sort of the digital citizenship piece of this, right? So even in some sort of glorious utopian world in which we were not at all worried about jobs being replaced, we were only worried about sort of the community and ethical impacts. This would still have an impact, right? There are still dimensions of this AI sort of explosion or revolution that impact us as human beings, separate from the professions that we might hold. So let's talk a little bit about that. And again, I'm curious if folks want to share in the chat or come off mute. What are you worried about? What are you excited about as far as sort of digital citizenship, or just being a person in a world that includes AI tools. Maybe I'll even add to that. What are you wondering about too?
I will tell you from our perspective, from a training perspective and an accessibility and equity lens, we are very concerned about how AI is going to learn monolingually, or be able to learn in other languages.
Yeah, which is a really interesting challenge and use case. Excuse me. I will say one of the places that I have seen AI coming up a lot. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay. One of the places that I'm seeing AI come up a lot is in translation, right? That especially using a large language model, if you have, again, mountains and mountains and mountains of text in one language, and then translated text in another language, like it is easy. I say easy as if I do this every day. I don't train AI models, but I'm told that it's relatively easy to train an AI model to translate languages. And yet there are also lots of examples out there on the internet of, I asked the AI how to translate this complex set of text, and it gave me something that sort of like, I think a blurry picture was the phrase that was used in the video, right? This was a very blurry picture of what was trying to be communicated, and not at all what a human being who is fluent in both of these languages would have come up with. Yeah, Becca.
And it's interesting, Zandy, because one of the things that was on your slide about AI being not so great at is sort of the cultural nuances, those human variations, and language is simply a representation of that, right? So it's, on the one hand, we think of language as data. So why doesn't, all these scads, why doesn't all of this data just magically work itself out? And it's because language is actually a pretty cultural and creative representation, and I think it moves quicker than the patterns. So perhaps AI might always be behind until the algorithms get better. It's just a consideration.
Yeah, well, and I love that maybe the idea that sort of language as representation, that it's not just a perfect one-to-one match, right? That this thing has this additional meaning in this other language, and we can just switch them back and forth forever, and there's no nuance lost, right? That we know that that's not really how language works. Yeah. Yeah, and that's so a good point from the chat about that ChatGPT or these other tools can be created to respond in other languages, which I do, but knowing that the prevalence of English in technology tools, especially in the US and in sort of the Western world generally, that has been a barrier, that we know that language contributes to folks struggling with learning a new system or a new set of skills on top of also learning a new language, right? That having a tool that can say, oh, you need this language? Great, let me just flip over into that language and I'm ready to go, that potentially lowers barriers, right? This is, there are potential positive impacts here as well, but they're not going to happen automatically. They're not going to happen without human intervention and oversight. Yeah,
that's what I was going to add too, is the cultural proficiency piece. So, where something is appropriate or not appropriate, or understandable, like translatable or not translatable, that concerns me.
Yeah. There's a lot of context about, not just what is the translation of this phrase, but like, with whom would you decide to use it? Under what circumstances would you decide to use it? Does it have this sort of like alternate or underlaid meaning that maybe is not captured in a directly programmed sense? Yeah. I want to, speaking of cultural contexts, here's a fun transition. Let's talk about this a little bit. So have we seen this image before or one like it? Is this new? Okay. So this is a good example of one of the ways that I think we want to be thoughtful about how AI might show up in not just in our professional world, but also in just our being a human being and consuming information, consuming media. So conveniently already labeled, thanks courtesy. Oh, I forgot to put a photo credit here. This is from the New York Times. Courtesy of the New York Times, indicating that this image was generated by AI. This is not a real thing. This did not happen. Not with the real Pope, right? It happened in this picture, and that is all. So it sort of brings up some questions about how do we think about what's real and how do we evaluate what's real. I do also like to point out that this is not like a completely revolutionary thing that no one could possibly have made this image before, right? Like a human being with an image of the Pope sitting down and with an image of a fighter plane with someone in the cockpit could have put these two images together if they had pretty good Photoshop skills. And as digital inclusion experts, previously our focus might have been on, cool, let's teach people the skills to do maybe not this exact thing, but something along those lines in Photoshop or in whatever other sort of digital media tools they're using. So it's interesting, right, that you don't need to develop those skills to create images and you don't need to even have sort of the source images at your fingertips to be able to create something like this, which is exciting and also alarming when we start thinking about, okay, how do we know if that really happened, if this person really said that? There's some interesting sort of news articles about the ability of AI to sort of record and learn and then replicate people's voices in ways that can feel a little bit alarming. So as we think about teaching digital citizenship and maybe thoughtful consumption of media, maybe is a good way to describe that. I mean, it's a lot of the same skills that we've been talking about previously, right? But so fact checking and critical media consumption, knowing how to do some background research to find out, did this really happen? Did the Pope go on a joyride in a fighter jet? Perhaps not. And some other aspects of digital citizenship as well that I think are really important. So, Sky, you mentioned your tool sort of showing up at times when you maybe were not expecting it. So informed consent, I think, becomes even more important here of one, reading at least some portion of the terms and conditions things when you sign up for an online resource or a digital tool, and the background knowledge to know what those things mean and know what it is that you're agreeing is okay with you or not okay with you. And
I think okay with others as well. So these, keeping in mind that these AI assistants are being used more and more widely now. I mean, I've been on meetings where they are there for others. And you're in a room, a virtual space with other people who may not be comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and yes, absolutely. And that brings me to the last bullet, the consideration of human impact beyond just yourself, right? That when we train folks or teach folks to be good digital citizens, hopefully we're talking about that there is a human being on the other side of that, Facebook post or instant messenger. I'm dating myself. Direct messages. I think that the DMs is the term I should be using these days. That knowing that there's a person. Yeah, Becca, go ahead.
5 minutes.
Oh yes, thank you. Good. I will rein in my nostalgia for 90s instant messaging. But yeah, so thinking about what is the human impact, not just what is the impact on me as a human, but on other people who are also being exposed to my choices, who are going to be impacted by those choices. And we put in here sort of awareness of personal risk tolerance, which is a thing that I hope we all kind of got comfortable talking about with in the peak pandemic years, right? Like what is my ability to tolerate risk to myself, but also what is the ability of the people around me to tolerate risk, and how can I make sure that I'm not overstepping that just because my risk tolerance might be different from theirs, right? So all of these are topics that hopefully we're having these conversations as we're training folks to be thoughtful and critical digital citizens. And so AI comes into that picture as well, sometimes even more than it would have previously. Yeah. Okay.
So in our final couple of moments right before Zandy wraps up here, I just want to say that I have done the drawing, so I will be announcing our raffle winners, and we will be sharing out a survey as you log out of this session. And if you could please just take a few moments to let us know what you thought of the session and how we did today. I just have to say, Lavonda Boyd, you win the award today because I think I've seen you in almost every session. So thank you so much for your participation.
Love that. Thank you.
Yay.
So yeah, we do have 3 winners to announce, and Zandy, I'll let you get to where you need to in wrapping up, and we'll open up for a couple of questions. Because we don't have a session directly after this, we can stay on for a few moments to get questions answered, but we do want to be respectful of everyone's time, and time zones.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that, Sky. So yes, we'll wrap up by just sharing these right now are pixels on your screen that you cannot click on, but I will drop these links into the chat so that you can pull up these additional resources and take a look at them later on at your leisure. Some of these we mentioned, some of these are additional resources that you may find useful that didn't come up directly in the conversation. So I'll share those out in just a moment. And then of course, as you have questions, if you want to reach out to Community Tech Network, we've got my and Sky's email addresses and also the email address of our overall Digital Lift team. If you have questions or want to follow up or want to invite us to support you in some other way. So I'll stop sharing. I'll put those resources in the chat and I will let Sky deliver our exciting prizes.
Zandy, thank you so much for leading this conversation today. We really appreciate you and your efforts, and wishing you a very safe journey home today. So we want to thank everyone for being here, and especially those of you who made it to multiple sessions. We really appreciate you participating in our Day of Equity, and we want to wish you a very happy remainder of Digital Inclusion Week. And without further ado, I'm going to say that, so I've been using, for those of you who've been in other sessions, you're aware of this, but if you have not, I will just let you know I've been using an iOS app on my phone called Raffle Pro, and that is what enables me to put all of y'all's names in the little spinner, and then it generates the random choosing of winners. So we have Alice He, Isabel Gonzalez, and Tom Yang that have won in this session today. And what we are awarding is enrollment in our Lift Trainers training product, which was largely developed by the great Zandy Wright. So it includes adult learning principles for digital inclusion, advanced instructional methods for digital inclusion, a digital skills curriculum walkthrough, shadowing video. We throw in our ACP overview content, and then enrollment in our Lift Trainers community forum. And of course, also included is the 90-minute workshop debrief, our resource package, and you get access to 1 complimentary curriculum from the CTN library. So thank you again, everyone, for being on this session and any other sessions that you were able to attend today. We wish you all very, very well. We are very proud to partner with all of you in bridging the digital divide. And that is it. And thanks to my team, every last one of you, for making today possible. We did it.
Thank you all so much. I'm dropping the last 2 resources in the chat for folks who are grabbing those, and then we'll wrap up. But so glad to have had you here all today for this discussion, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
Any final questions?
I just want to say thank you, Zandy.
Yeah, thank you. And again, this is the kind of stuff that I really nerd out on. So if any of you have want to nerd out on this with me, please, my virtual door is open.
Yay. We'll be sure to give your phone number out, your personal number. No, okay. Late night chats.
Yes. I will have my AI assistant block my calls at.
Conveniently.
All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, dear. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Night, everyone. Thank you.